This is Adam Nathan from Blaze.ai, and you're listening to the S.M.E podcast.
You are now listening to the next great small business podcast. Welcome to the S.M.E Stories podcast, where it is all about small businesses in Canada. And here's your host, Ken Alfred.
Okay, so let me ask you this now, Adam. So I always ask all my guests, what has been your biggest failure, but also your biggest success so far?
I wouldn't call it a failure because I think we learned from it and we have improved because of it. I think failures are only things that you don't learn from and stay failures. I'm a product manager by background. I worked at companies like Apple, Lyft, and my job there was to build new products and features for people. And I think a lot of people who are product managers or who build stuff for a living can fall into this fallacy where, like, if you build, they will come. That essentially growth or product market fit comes from building more stuff for people. And it's easy to think like, oh, if I build another thing, that will increase our growth rate. Or, you know, if we're not growing, haven't built something yet. And in some cases, that's true. Sometimes you need to build enough for someone to complete a certain job. But often building more actually slows down your growth in some weird ways. It's when you build stuff, you often have to change the product. That makes people have to relearn the product, makes the product more confusing, more complicated, and it can lead to churn where people leave the product because things are changing too much. They become too complicated. People stay with products often when things don't change because even if the product's not perfect, they learn the quirks around it. They know how to get what they need to done. One of the things I think my biggest failure was not investing enough in improving the product as it is, and instead always thinking that we needed to build more. There's this concept in startups called product market fit, and we had product market fit almost from the first day we launched Blaze. And even though people love the product and for what it did, but there's still a lot of kind of quirks in the product, things that weren't as smooth or easy or fast as they could be. And rather than, I think, initially fixing those things and making the product just work better as it is, we built more stuff. And so we increased the surface area of the product. We added more bugs and friction to the product. And that led to less engagement, more cancellations, a lower product quality experience for our customers. And I think since I learned from that sometimes the answer isn't to build more, it's actually to build less and improve what you have. So today, I'd say 70, 80% of our engineering capacity goes to improving the product as it is based on what customers are reporting as bugs or complaining about. We spend a lot less time trying to add new stuff. Of course we do. We just added video, for example. We're adding new stuff all the time, but we spend a lot more time just trying to make the product easier, faster, simpler, more fun for customers. And that's led to higher retention, more engagement, and more revenue. And so I think it's a common mistake that people who with my background make, is that we think that building more will lead to more growth. And in fact, building less often leads to faster growth.
Less is more.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think it's the challenge is to try to add the next bells and whistle to what you currently have versus really just improving what you already have and just still keeping under the same umbrella. So that's pretty good, interesting thought about that. Because I think everyone, the standard entrepreneur, like, what else can we create? And sometimes let's really ratchet down and make sure our core product is actually the best one we have. And then, like you said, it's pretty cool. So,
yeah. All
right. Now we're going to hit our tips from the pro segment here. This is where a little bit more specific to people who want trying to get into not exactly your space, but something like your space. So now you said you're in the AI space, but specifically within the small business marketing, small to medium sized marketing there. Is there any other profitable niche you see within the AI sphere that maybe a new entrepreneur might be able to maybe tap into?
I think there's a ton of opportunities with AI to reinvent lots of industries. My advice to aspiring entrepreneurs would be to go as narrow as possible. So again, a common mistake of new first-time founders is to pick a really big opportunity, thinking that, oh, if it's a huge market, we should be able to succeed more. In fact, that's the opposite of what ends up being true. Big markets are often dominated by really big incumbents with great products that are well known in the industry. It's really hard to find a way to crack into those products because the markets are so well served. It's actually much better to find like a small market that is underserved by competitors where there's a lot of demand relative to supply. So there's a lot of pain that someone has. No one's really dealing with it. And the narrower you can go, the more that with the limited time and money that you have, you'll be able to solve that problem well. So, you know, you could say, hey, we want to we want to be a productivity tool. That's too big. Or we want to be a productivity tool for lawyers. That's still too big. Or we want to be a productivity tool for legal assistants. Still too big. We want to be an AI product for legal assistants who are working on this one type of form. Maybe that's actually the right size, because you could, with the time and money that you have, actually build a product that's good enough to replace what those legal assistants were using today. And from that traction that you get around that one small use case, you can then start to grow out and out and out. The other benefit of being really narrow is that you can deeply understand your customers, understand really what they need, what is a must-have feature in your product versus a nice-to-have. A lot of founders, when they have something that is too big in scope, end up kind of peanut buttering their time across all sorts of things they think people need, but aren't the core one or two things that people would buy the product for and can't live without. There's a truism that you'd rather have a product that's extraordinary at one or two things and shitty at all the others, rather than having a product that's kind of good enough at a bunch, or mediocre at a bunch of things. Nobody wants to buy a worse version of the product that's in the market. People want to buy a product that's 10 times better or a standard deviation better than the alternative. And often it's just those one or two features that can hook someone in and give you the time you need to build everything else around it.
No, that's pretty good advice, actually, because if you think about it, like you said, start with narrow and start to expand out. Because like you said, people make the mistake, they want to go big. Like, if you want to start a pet grooming business, and you say, okay, maybe just start with cats only first, just to really get it narrowed down to the fact that, okay, I can now sell, cat products on my website in addition to my services.
Like hypoallergenic cats, or maybe a tool for hypoallergenic cats. Go as small as you possibly can. It'll make competitors ignore you. You'll end up being able to identify a target group of people. It'll make it easier to find the people and sell to them, because you'll know exactly who they are. So you can target them with ads and with messaging on your website. And then they'll give you the traction that you need to then start to expand out.
Yeah. That include dogs and maybe include horses. Who knows? But okay, next question here. So what resources do you use to keep you updated within the industry?
I feel like I'm being controversial or heretical in all these questions. I actually don't read a lot about what's happening in our industry. I keep track of, if I see something in the news, I'll read the article, but I'm much more focused on listening to our customers. What I think as a competitor, the way that we succeed is by listening really deeply to what our customers need and building as fast as we can for them. When you see a competitor launch something, that's almost like a reflection of something that they discovered about their customers, like probably 6 months or even a year before. Whatever they're working on now, you don't even know about yet until the future. So it's really hard to compete with somebody based on what you're reading about what they're releasing in the news, because it's an artifact of their learning and discovery. The best way to actually be competitive is to stay ahead of your customers, your competitors, by listening to your customers. Our customers, they're not necessarily looking around the world reading news articles and saying, oh, I should jump to this. Like, what are the latest and greatest in the products in the world? There's a certain group of people, early adopters, who do that, but most people out there don't care. Like, they're busy and they're distracted, and they don't care about like everything going on in technology. They want a product that's good for them and does what they need. And so our job as a company is to listen to the people that we already have and make sure that we keep all of them, as many of them as possible, and keep building the right stuff for them so that they stay with us for as long as possible and keep using us for more and more things. And then we are able to find more people like them. Our race is not against competitors, especially as a startup. We're not competing against other startups. We're competing against extinction. We're competing against, our competition is that we run out of money and die. And so I'm less concerned about what other people are doing and more concerned, how do we stay alive as long as possible and keep growing? And we do that by building a product our customers want and love and continuing to build for them. And in our case, as I mentioned before, if you're focused on a niche, people are ignoring. In our case, it's AI marketing tool for small businesses. We don't really have a lot of competitors in our space. We can dominate that market just by listening to our customers, because we will be the only game or the best game in town for all those people with relatively little competition. So if you combine those two insights of pick a niche that few people are in with a bunch of unserved needs from customers, and stay focused on those customers over time and ignore the noise, you can end up building a very, very big business.
Well, that's really cool because I think what some other people usually like to think about is like, oh, I got to invest in like some market intelligence website or go to join trade organizations, all that sort of stuff. But I think what's really cool about your approach is that literally you're getting it from your actual customers who will be paying you. So it's almost like free market research already to say, well, what do you guys think we're missing? What do you guys like? And is there anything we can improve on? Or what's something that's still a pain point that's not something we do that maybe that's something we can help you out with? I mean, those are really good, questions right there for them, right? So,
And I mean, they will, if you have product market fit, if your customers love the product you have, they will tell you. And they won't tell you out of hatred. They may be frustrated, but they'll tell you out of love because they love a certain part of your product, but it's missing this one thing, or this one thing is really shitty. And so they're telling you in advance of churning or leaving, like, hey, I love you, but like, please fix this fucking thing. And
yes,
it's to your detriment to not listen to them. You asked me about my failures before. Even though I think I'm a smart person with good intuition, I am so often wrong about what our customers need because I am not our customers. I'm a startup CEO living in San Francisco. Our customers are small business owners, entrepreneurs, and freelancers and agencies across the country and the world. I am not them. They are them. So the best way I can be right about what our company needs to grow is to listen to the people who I'm building for. And so many founders, I think that they are smarter than their customers. And I always ask other founders I meet, or entrepreneurs, I ask, do you want to build a business, or do you want to do an art project? If you want to build something for yourself, like you're doing pottery or painting something, you're doing an art project, that's fine. But you don't expect to make money from art. Most people don't. The thing that distinguishes an art project from a business is that with a business, you are building for other people. You have to build what they want, what they need, what they will pay for. And that is often very different than what you think is cool or right or necessary. And it is to your detriment if you just stay focused on what's going on in your own brain versus listening to other people. It's hard to listen to other people. You're going to figure out that you're wrong about 90% of stuff, and that sucks. Not great to feel like you're a fucking idiot all day long. But you have to get over that pain and that embarrassment in order to get to the truth of what people need, and that's what will help you succeed.
That's pretty cool. So, all right, let me get through a couple more of these tips from the pro questions before we hit the rapid fire round here. Okay, so when it comes to, is there any special insurance when you're doing like a SaaS supplier, like your supplier as a service, or when you're creating it? Is there anything you have to get from a business standpoint?
Make sure you have really good terms and conditions, depending on how people use your products. You want to work with a good lawyer to make sure you're indemnified. We have content that we produce for people, so we of course don't want someone to sue us if something happens with their content. And it's specific to the industry. As you grow big, you want, if you're to raise outside capital, you want things like directors and officers insurance to indemnify you in case something happens with the company. But in general, for a business like ours, which is a SaaS business, it's fairly straightforward in terms of like the risk profile. It's a very easy business structurally to set up.
Okay, perfect. Next question. What is your best strategy for dealing with very difficult clients?
We pride ourselves on being really great at customer service at Blaze. And so, of course, we get people who are angry and write in. But as I mentioned, I think that's a sign that they still care enough to tell us. It's like a relationship where if you're fighting in a relationship, it means both people are still engaged to try and make it work. The real danger is if people stop talking to each other, then you're really screwed. So when a customer is really angry, we actually try and engage with them, even though it may be painful to listen to and absorb. From that, there's a truth that they're trying to communicate with us. And so we will often, when a customer writes to me with a long screed, I will try and get them on the phone as soon as possible. We'll get an engineer on the phone with me to watch them go through the product so we can figure out what's going on from their point of view. We also have really fast SLA. So when a customer reports a bug or issue to us, we try and get it solved within 24 hours from when it's reported to when there's a fix in the product. Because like a lot of problems, people really care about, they care less about how the problem started and more about how it was resolved. And so people will remember not like, oh, it was really annoying when I couldn't post this thing, but more like, oh, the Blaze team heard me and fixed this within 24 hours. They care about me and my problems. And so that can actually turn, a problem into like an angry customer into our biggest promoter because it's not that there was a problem. There's problems with anything out in the world, any product or service. There's always going to be an issue. It's not perfect. What matters more is how you respond to it.
Oh yeah, that's really good actually. I like that little tip you just had there where you want to be on with that customer right away and including someone from your tech team or engineering team, because you can maybe try to smooth things over depending on the issue, but if it's very super technical and to say, okay, I'll have to check with my department, I'll get back to you a little bit later. That could almost exacerbate the issue even more. So the fact that you say, okay, we're going to go on this call with this customer so we can go over it together, so we can literally see the user experience of what it is. Because sometimes, how many times it's happened where, you're taking your car to the mechanic for a specific noise, and when they get there, you turn on the car, it doesn't make that noise. Or that issue you're having on the website where you're trying to keep it, and it doesn't work. And then next thing you know, everything's working when you're trying to show it in front of the people. So I like that tip that you have there. So
the other thing I mentioned though is not just, of course, to serve our customers better, but it's also to help our engineers, our designers, our marketers see the impact of their work. Nobody likes feedback. As I was saying, product managers just don't like feedback on their ideas. Engineers don't like to see how shitty their code might actually be. Marketers hate to put stuff out in the world because it might fail. Nobody likes that kind of where the rubber hits the road with reality. And what often happens is engineers will write code, but they actually won't test it very well. They would just want to throw it over the fence and then move on to the next thing. It's really helpful for the code quality that we write for engineers to see the impact of their work, to see how people are really using it, to see their coding basically in concept land, and to see how people actually engage with the product helps them be better at their job. And so again, it's uncomfortable at first to get that slap in the face of reality of like, oh, it didn't work like we expected, but it actually is a better product. And of course, more growth, more money over time, the more you actually engage in feedback with customers.
Interesting. All right. Last question we have here is, what is the best billing practice for, let's say, a new firm? Like, is it monthly? Is it a per project? Or what's your best advice?
We try to overcomplicate things when it comes to pricing. And I think especially if you're an early company, you shouldn't be over-focused on things like billing or the legal stuff. Like those are all, I call it like playing company. Like those are easy. You can pay a lawyer to come up with your terms and conditions. You can spend a lot of money on fancy like pricing or billing techniques. But if you don't have a core business, by which I mean you don't have a product that people love and are willing to pay for, none of that matters. And people, I think founders will often prefer to do anything except build a product people love. They love to hire people and spend money in this way, or outfit their office, or get swag. None of that matters, because if you don't have people paying you for the product, all that's going away pretty quickly. And so on pricing, my recommendation in billing would be to keep it simple up front, pre-product market fit. So start with something that's like, per user per month is a standard practice. That's kind of the standard billing approach in SaaS. I look to your competitors and basically copy whatever their pricing or billing is. And so if it's annual pricing or monthly pricing or weekly pricing, I would just copy your competitors, because often upfront people will not choose a product based on the price. They'll choose a product based on whether it does a better job than the alternative. So I think the right approach is copy your competitors when it comes to, or alternatives when it comes to pricing, and build a product that's a standard deviation better. Once you're sure that you have a product that's better, then you can start to segment out pricing or billing and say, hey, we're going to offer 4 pricing packages. But the way to figure that out is eventually to have enough customers using the product where you can say, oh, people value this feature and that feature more than these other ones, so we're going to put these behind a paywall on a higher pricing package. You can do things like offer annual pricing or weekly or daily pricing depending on your industry. But I'd say keep it simple on all the stuff that doesn't matter, which is anything outside of building a product people want and will pay for. If you don't have that, unless you, listener, can say, hell yes, I have that, then you don't have it. Mm-hmm. If you don't have it, I would ignore all the stuff that's not trying to build a product people want. Once you have that, you have a real business, you can start to build a real business around it and do things like billing and hiring and fun things with your culture. But before you have a product people want, none of that matters.
Right. We need to have the latest gym bag, but we're not just for the sake of having it, even though we're not a gym company. Just to have your stuff on.
Like I've spent my time on lots of stuff that was more fun to do than build a product people want. It's really hard to build a product people want. You're wrong most of the time. People eating glass for years. And so of course, no one wants to do that, but that is the essential work to do. That's why so many startups fail, but the startups that succeed so well, because if you can build that muscle inside yourself and endure the pain of being wrong again and again and again until you're right, because you perfected the art of listening to customers. If you can figure that out, you're going to be a millionaire. But if you do other shit, you're going to fail just like everybody. And I think many people don't figure that out until it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do the rapid fire round now. All right, so first question on the rapid fire round. What is your best tip to maintain a work-life balance?
Exercise every day. I go to the gym for an hour every day. I leave my phone basically in the locker. I feel I never regret going to the gym. I always feel better after. It clears my mind. It also gives me space to think about what's important to the business. I often come out with new thoughts or ideas or realize problems I couldn't see when I was too busy. So find some way to exercise.
Well, that's interesting. And then the fact that you're leaving your phone in the gym locker. So, how many times do you see people just on their phones at the gym, right? Because they're listening to a podcast or they're listening to music and they're just trying to swipe to the next song that next thing you know, their set that's supposed to be only 30 seconds now takes like 5 minutes before they hit their next set of exercises. So interesting about that. Okay, next question. What would the 15-year-old self be thinking you'd be doing now?
I thought I would be an architect, but I think what I do now is actually very similar to architecture. And it's, how do you design, instead of designing a building, I've designed a company. And you have to think about, just like in a building, heating and electrical and plumbing and light. In business, you have to think about marketing and finance and hiring and culture and operations and customer service. And so it's very similar in a lot of ways of how do you build something that is greater than the sum of its parts, that is really an elegant a summation of lots of different systems. So it's different, but in some ways I think
that's great. All right, next question. What is something that everyone likes, but you can't get into it?
Crypto.
I
don't get it.
Same here. I did a voiceover for crypto and some NFTs, and I still have no clue what it is. And I did the voiceover for it, and I still don't know what it is. So I do that, and my wife and my kids, they're really into this game called Block Blast. I don't know what that is. To me, it looks like a reverse Tetris. I have no clue how to do it. And sometimes I see them on their phones. I'm like, there's 3 of them around the couch all playing the exact same time. I'm like, is it a multiplayer game? It's like, no, it's individual. Okay. I tried it once, couldn't get into it. So yeah. Next question. Now we're close to the holidays. What is the best and worst holiday movie?
I love Home Alone. It's a childhood favorite. I grew up in New York, so Home Alone 2, Lost in New York is my favorite all-time holiday movie. Worst holiday movie? Oh, I don't know. There's so many these days on Netflix. It's hard to count, but probably whatever they put out last week over Thanksgiving.
Well, this is the first time that actually the guest and I did not talk about this ahead of time. We actually have the exact favorite holiday movie. And I love Home Alone 1 and 2. And here's I'll make this easier for you. What's the worst holiday movie? Anything after Home Alone 2. Home Alone 3, 4, 5, whatever that is. Because
I agree.
You take Macaulay Culkin and the bad guys out of it, I'm sorry, I can't watch it.
Yeah.
All right, next question. I always ask this to all my guests. If you had a sandwich named after you, what would be on it and what would you call it?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Like a fried chicken cutlet.
Ooh.
Mozzarella cheese, lettuce, tomato, warm vinegar on like a hoagie. I went to summer camp in Pennsylvania, like, I don't know, I'd call it like the camp special or something.
The camp special. I love it. You know, a lot of my guests who have the hardest with that question, chefs. They just tend to overthink everything.
It's hard. It's a hard question to narrow down.
Exactly. You should see it when I ask, is cereal a soup? And then some of them are like, well, yeah, because it's cold. But then how many types of cold soups are there? And then they start going through this rabbit hole that I'm like, guys, we only have an hour, man. We don't have to get into the history of the lima bean or anything like that, try to figure that out. So interesting here. All right, last question I always ask here is, what is your theme song and why? So when Adam is walking down the street, that song hits. Everyone knows that Adam's coming.
I don't know who sang it, but there's like a rap song from the early 2000s called like "Remember the Name," and it was always the like walk out.
Oh, Fort Minor. I think I remember that.
For my high school sports teams. So that's always, whenever that comes on when I'm at the gym on my AirPods, I get extra hyped. And so,
what sports did you play?
Football.
Nice, man. I tried out for one. I tried out for 2 high school sports teams. Didn't make either of them. I tried out for baseball because I used to play in grade school. I took 4 baseballs to the chest. People thought I had pecs of steel. Nope, that just my bones just didn't break. That's why I didn't do it. And the last one, I'll make this story really fast, is I tried out for the badminton team. I used to play tennis. Badminton in grade school was great. And I remember this story very vividly. The coach had, I guess, a doubles thing. So myself and 3 other players hitting against each other. And this is in front of everybody else. And we're going through, we're hitting it. And they said, thanks, guys, but you're all cut. I'm like, right in front of anyone. You couldn't just say, thank you very much. We're going to post the cut list on the board or at the front of the gym door so you know who's not going to make it. But no, she embarrassed everybody who was there. So me and the 3 other guys that were trying out for the team. So yeah, not a fun memory. But anyways, last question we have here, Adam. Is there any other final advice you would want to give to any aspiring entrepreneur, whether it's in the AI space or not?
Do your homework, I think, is what I always tell people. Most people don't prepare for anything. For, as like this, or for major interviews, or for fundraising pitches, or for customer conversations. I think it's always good to prep beforehand, because I think luck is a combination of opportunity and preparation. And most people have lots of opportunities. They're just not ready to take advantage of them. And I think people who win in life are people who are prepared.
All right. Great to know. And you didn't prep ahead of time about the sandwich, but okay, we'll figure that part out next time. And finally, where can people reach out to you?
Everything we talked about today is on our website at blaze.ai. My LinkedIn and Twitter and email are there as well. And there's a ton of content for entrepreneurs and a community as well. We have a ton of small business owners, solopreneurs, new founders who are helping each other every day. And so if you don't use Blaze, the tool, you should definitely take advantage of our free resources. And all that's at blaze.ai.
Oh, great. All right, Adam, it was great to have you on the show. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, do you need an error-free website? Do you need transcription that's accurate and on time? Would you like to remove noise from your video or audio recording? Do you need a spokesperson for your business? If so, we can help. At Northway Capital Group, we are happy to announce that we are now providing website testing services, audio transcriptions, and audio cleanup, as well as spokesperson services. We would love to help you on your next project. Contact us for more information at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com.
Hey you, do you need a voiceover? Well, look no farther. Northway Capital Group has your answer. Commercials and explainer videos, AVR and voicemail, health and wellness, corporate training and e-learning, announcements, documentaries, and biography. Contact us on social media or email us at northwaycapitalgroup@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to the S.M.E Stories podcast, which is owned by Northway Capital Group. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Northway Capital Group.